What's up, it's Nintendo 64 Austin, and time to do my next collection video as part of this 100 subscriber special. Now, this time it's the Game Boy Color. Now, I didn't get any new games for my Game Boy Color since I posted that OG Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance collection video since January, but speaking of Game Boy Advance, I'm not going to be doing that in this collection video because for one good reason is because I sold my Game Boy Advance games. So and the rest of the games and all the stuff I had to trade in, but the rest of them I'm keeping in my collection because for obvious reasons. So here is my Game Boy Color. I did show this in my OG Game Boy collection video and happens to be shown as of this collection video. Now, like I said in my OG Game Boy collection video, this is the Game Boy Color that I got since June 2022. I got McKay's for $80, which was a really good deal to be honest. So yeah, here's my Atomic Purple Game Boy Color. Now let's get to my Game Boy Color games that we have. So here is Tetris DX. Now, this is basically the an OG Game Boy Tetris game, but now in color, I guess. But and as you can tell that this now guys, if you can see on there, this is not a OG Game Boy game. This is actually a Game Boy Color game because I'm not sure it was like a transition thing, because when the Game Boy Color came out, they put OG Game Boy Black cartridges where they can be compatible with the OG Game Boy, Game Boy Pocket, and Game Boy Light, and the Game Boy Color. But when I have the Game Boy Color only games, those will only work in the Game Boy Color and up. So yeah, just to let you all know on that, because yeah, these are just mainly Game Boy Color dual cartridges, where there's black OG Game Boy cartridges where it's compatible with the OG Game Boy and up, and so forth. But yeah, Tetris DX is good. I did got this game with my Game Boy Color. It's about $15, but yeah, so really good puzzle game. Game & Watch Gallery 2. I don't have the first one on the OG Game Boy because I was just focusing on getting some other games that I wanted to get, but I will get the game at some point because I do remember playing it on the 3DS Virtual Console. But Game & Watch Gallery 2, I never played it on the 3DS Virtual Console, but I did get it physical, and now I have the Game Boy Color. I have the opportunity to play this game, and this is basically my only Game Boy system game that had to be ordered online. So mainly because I couldn't find the second game, so I had to order it off of Amazon for a couple bucks. And here is Game & Watch Gallery 3. Alright Game Boy Color game, but I would prefer 2 and 1, because those are just Game & Watch games that are just okay, let me repeat that, because I do prefer the first and the second because be, because those Game & Watch games are just good than the ones on Game & Watch Gallery 3 because they were just so difficult. But I had to get it because it was only a couple bucks at McKay's. Donkey Kong Country. Now this is basically a not for resale copy because I'm not sure it was like a transition thing or this game was packed with the Game Boy Color or something because I'm not sure. Because I couldn't find any information on why there is a not for resale copy of Game Boy Color games because Mario Tennis has it. What else? I mean, those are the only one that came off the top of my head because I'm not sure it was like a transition thing or those games were packed with the Game Boy Color, but yeah, Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Color. It's basically an 8-bit version of the SNES game. They didn't get the whole trilogy until the Game Boy Advance, where they got Donkey Kong Country 2, 3 on the Game Boy Advance, and the first one on the Game Boy Advance. But however, on the Game Boy Color, we just only got the first one, and this is basically on the uncommon side, I'm pretty sure, because a lot of people don't really recognize this 8-bit Donkey Kong Country version all that much. I mean, some people know that the Donkey Kong Country games would have been on the SNES and the Game Boy Advance, but however, the Game Boy Color version is a different story. And my last Game Boy Color game I have is Mario Tennis. Yeah, speaking of Mario Tennis, but yeah, I had to get this because because I love one of the Mario games, so I had to get it on Game Boy Color. But I will get some Game Boy Color games, more Game Boy Color games soon. And by the way, my next Game Boy Color game I want to pick up, probably Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. What else? One of the Wario Land games. Those are like the only two or three that I can think of on the top of my head, because for a shorter collection video, that is, I have just the worst luck of it, because I'm not saying that I don't like the system, because it's just very hard just to get games for it for some reason. But yeah, that's basically it for this Game Boy Color collection video as part of this 100 sub special. Yeah, give it a like, comment down below what's your favorite Game Boy game or Game Boy Color game, sorry about that. And yeah, subscribe if you're new. So yeah, Nintendo 64 signing out, and peace.